with varying horsepower, the top one being an insane Volkswagen Beetle GRC, which will have 544 horsepower. That's insanity for a tiny little car like that. And of course, they're going to do that with the turbo. It's going to be a little 1.6 liter engine, but it's going to be turbo and put out 544 horsepower. Now, for most people, they're going to buy one. They'll get one that has like 200 something horsepower, or they can get an all-wheel drive one that they say is going to have 335 horsepower. That's still a lot of horsepower for a little car like that. You know, it's only so fast you can really drive in a little car like that. Does it really need that much horsepower? I mean, the original Volkswagen Beetle had 36 horsepower, and in 1977 it had a whopping 48 horsepower. Well, with their fancy one, do you really need 10 times the horsepower? Not really, but I mean, you know, people come up with the craziest ideas. It's kind of interesting, you know, that they're bringing the Beetle back. Volkswagen's in dire straits. I mean, they've got all kinds of problems, so I guess they're letting all the stops loose, and they're hoping that they can get a Beetle out there to bring back the memories, but it isn't going to bring back the memories for that many people because they claim they're going to start at like $55,000 for that little car. It's an awful lot of money. The original Beetle was $1,500. They say that $1,500, which was the price of the original Volkswagen in '59, was worth about $16,000 today, not $55,000 or more. So they certainly have gone way past inflation with the price of these Beetles. Just like their little ID.Buzz, the electric Volkswagen van, it's outrageously expensive too. When the original van was dirt cheap, they kind of lost their footing, Volkswagen. No surprise they're having all these strikes in Germany. People aren't buying their cars. They got quality control problems. And I don't think the new Beetle, especially being version 3, 1, 2, 3. I don't think it's going to cut the mustard much. I'm sure some people will buy it. People will buy anything, right? But will it be a massive success? I kind of doubt it. Well, here's a hilarious one from one of your viewers. He sent me an email that they bought a Hyundai and they had problems registering it because it had the same VIN number as another Hyundai. They had actually built them. He sent the pictures and 2 cars, completely different cars, but they had the same VIN number. King of Morty says, Scotty, just when I thought Hyundai couldn't get lower, you've always said about their crappy piles of junk, they'd gone way lower. A friend bought a 2015 Hyundai Santa Fe Sport. We couldn't register it because it was discovered that a 2014 Hyundai Santa Fe Limited was already registered with the same VIN number. We thought something was fishy until the government agency showed us the pictures of the VIN. As you can see, everything on the VIN plates are different except the VIN numbers. So it wasn't a forgery. I certainly won't be thinking about buying a Hyundai car of any sort anytime soon. Imagine a car with the same VIN number. Now, the VIN number gives you all the specific information about the car. The reason it's called VIN is Vehicle Identification Number. It's to identify. You get your registration, your insurance, everything, right? So, what a company, you know? I mean, that kind of reminds me years ago. I had a Ford Maverick, and my friend had a Ford Fairlane, right? And one day, we went out, and I don't know, I just grabbed keys, I got my car, and I drove home. So I get there, and I'm like, hey, the key doesn't work on the house. Well, it turns out I had taken my friend's keys, and Ford had made the same key for his 12-year-old car fit my 7-year-old Maverick. They're the same exact key. Went in and turned. Now, back in the day, there's only so many key combinations of just a plain old key. They didn't have any kind of anti-theft stuff, any chips or anything, but it's kind of funny. And then I went to call him up on the phone, and it just so happened he figured it out at the same time. When I picked up the phone, it hadn't rung yet, but there he was on the other end. He said, you took my keys. I can't get in my house. So I drove back with the car. Since it worked, the key, got my key, drove my car back with the right keys. But in this case, it's a big deal, the VIN number. It's legal stuff, so much for Hyundai. The kind of quality they got going. Well, it looks like the Japanese are finally wising up. They just restarted their Shimane 2 nuclear power plant after it was offline for 13 years. You know, the Japanese were so afraid after Fukushima, they shut them all down. Well, guess what? That is the 14th nuclear reactor in Japan that has been put back online. 2012, they shut this down. They shut a lot of them down. They're finally realizing they need a lot of power, right? And if they do it correctly, and maybe don't build a nuclear power plant on a fault area right next to the ocean where tidal waves can get in. They have tidal waves all the time there, right? They could have put it up higher up in the mountains. It would have been perfectly safe. They wouldn't have had any problems. Of course, then they'd have to pump the water uphill. It costs more money, right? Sometimes being cheap doesn't pay off, but even the Japanese now are realizing nuke is a way to go to get enough power. People use a tremendous amount of electricity, and these little windmills and solar panels do not cut the mustard. Plus, they don't last that long either compared to what a nuke power plant could go for decades and still put out a lot of power, right? And the newer ones, they make them so that they're even more efficient. So, finally, even the Japanese are wising up that, hey, maybe we shouldn't have this knee-jerk reaction, but just shutting all the nukes down just because one of them blew up because we built it in the wrong place and the people that ran it didn't do such a hot job.